Hi, greetings everyone. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today. We're so glad that you can tune in and we can share some time to talk about social media marketing. How can it help your company grow internally? Just while the last of you guys are logging in, just a little bit of housekeeping. This webinar will last about 45 minutes, and we've allocated some time at the very end for some Q&A. So we would really love to see your questions, so please don't be shy. Insert your questions into the chat box, and we'll make sure to answer them at the end. And if we run out of time, we will make sure to send you a personalized email. There will also be a few polls. Again, we would really appreciate it if you would respond to the polls. They're super helpful for us to make sure that we're on track with the information that you guys are looking for. So please answer those. That would be amazing. And at the very end, there will be a brief survey. It literally takes 1 minute. We would really appreciate if you guys fill that out as well. So before we jump into the content of the webinar, just a real quick introduction. My name is Samantha Sofici. I am a Senior Business Development Manager for IBT Online. I've been with IBT Online for over 3 years. And although I'm located in Florida, I have a passion to help US companies grow internationally in their top target markets. I'm also joined today by Joelle Lazzarato, our Senior Marketing Manager, and her focus is developing effective international online marketing campaigns for exporters. So starting with search engine optimization, keywords, and also on social media marketing. And she is the go-to girl for anything and everything social media marketing. So finding the right channels for each individual country and how to advertise to support your international websites. Susanna also joins us today, our Chief Content Officer, and is the go-to person for content on your websites, and also a very familiar voice for all of you frequent webinar attenders. As Chief Content Officer, she is a whiz at just fun facts about the internet and websites and international marketing. So now a brief word on IBT Online. So IBT Online stands for International Business and Technology, and that pretty much sums up who we are. We're a private company that's 100% focused on building, hosting, managing online tools for our clients to help them grow internationally. These fall under 2 categories. So the first being website localization and online marketing. Perhaps our greatest unique selling point is that we work, we think, and we act globally and online, and we've done so since 2002. We create websites in over 24 languages for over 40 countries, and so it's a well-trodden road, and we have a great international team to support us. So now to get started, today's agenda, we decided to cut the presentation up into 6 parts. Starting with the online environment and why we think you need a social media marketing strategy. Then we'll focus on the buyer persona buyer's journey, followed by a quick overview of the main international social media channels. And then Joelle will detail some of the main social media strategies to reach your target markets and your buyers. We also want to highlight some of the programs and the funding available to US exporters from federal and state governments that are there to give you a helping hand in growing globally. Finally, takeaways and Q&A, and that should get you back to your desks well within the hour. Don't forget to drop your questions in the chat box as we go along. And to start this presentation off, I will hand over to Susanna.
Samantha, thank you so much. That's terrific. Yeah, let's all start talking about what I've called how to reach your clients anywhere, anytime, anywhere that they are. So. And I'm delighted to be here with my colleagues today to talk about social media marketing. And I guess we wanted also to highlight just where we are today and sort of how things are panning out for us and for many of our clients for this. And I guess from our side, to share with you some of the experiences we've had. And there's a very, very consistent sort of little priority list that you can group things into that when we talk to our clients, and clearly, looking after employees is one of the major ones. But also how to generate sales, how to generate and maintain your export vitality, how to build your business going forward. So those are the things that we focus on in terms of online tools. So we're all about sort of, okay, how do we use online tools to generate sales, to generate exports, to maintain business, and so on. So that's the core of what we are going to be focusing on and do as a business. And today, talking about social media marketing and how that can really drive your sales. I hate the term, but the new normal in this time. So in this sort of weird time that we have. These stats are hot off the press, October 2020. We're always very grateful for Hootsuite, and we are producing these internet global stats that they do. And the numbers I find startling, amazing. So just to give you sort of the numbers of who's, what are we talking about when we talk about an online world or a digital first world? Well, we're a world population of like 7.5 billion people. 60% of us, 4.66 billion people, as of October this year, are online. And when we talk about online, they're online for nearly 7 hours a day. So 7 hours a day, 4.66 billion people are plugged in. That's, I think, an amazing stat. And it's no doubt that COVID has had a major impact on that number. If you look at just in terms of the annual global internet users is up, 320 million people joined the internet and plugged on for the first time this year. And that's a big acceleration. Well, it's an acceleration from a sort of a 3 or 4% growth we've seen before that. 321 million, that's the size of the United States population, for example. So there's no doubt that 60% of the world are now online, as I said, online for nearly 7 hours a day. And it is still growing from here. So, as I said, COVID has had a major impact. But if we look in terms of social media, it's also, the number of people who have joined social media this year is up 12.5%. 450 million people joined social media. 450 million people joined social media. Just worth repeating. Also worth repeating, how many of them have joined via mobile phone? And again, this is something that we're seeing in so many different markets of the mobile first market. With regard to social media in particular, so we said 4.6 billion people are online, 4.14 billion people are active social media users. So we said 60% of the global population is online, 53% of them are using social media. And in many, many, many markets, they use social media as a very integral part of working. So not just, occasional LinkedIn post here, but really searching out through social media, using social media platforms as search engines, which we'll come to later. Note again the number of people on using mobile phones. So 4 billion out of those 4.1 billion on social media using it via mobile phone. So again, an important aspect. If we look across the world, there are countries out there where social media is so dominant. 99% of the population of UAE use social media. There are countries where it's still very limited, even India, actually, only 29%, which, pulls things down quite a bit. So the average for the world is 51%. It's interesting to see the US is at 69%. So 69% social media out of the total population are using social media. So I guess these are sort of these big picture numbers that I just wanted to hand out to you and say, these are numbers worth remembering every now and then when you're thinking about how do I reach people? How do I connect with prospects? Where are my clients? How can I keep tabs on them? Well, you can because they're all online and they're all on using social media marketing as well. So that's actually really, really good news for businesses, especially small and mid-sized businesses, let's say. You know where your clients are, you know where your prospects are, you know your suppliers are, your employees, your future employees, everybody's online. And everybody can be reached in the right way, the proper way. In that sense, you can use online business development tools, your website, your online marketing, social media marketing, to be found, to be understood, to do business anywhere in the world. And that's the power of this, I think. Now, some B2B companies can be a little bit reticent, a little bit shy about this. They sort of say, well, you know, we have great products. Yeah, they'll find us. We're so good. I think it's worth remembering how competitive the internet is now. You know, how many websites are there? How many billion of searches are there per day, per hour, certainly per day? So it's worth remembering that nobody is so good that they can't use the internet anymore. I think that's a thing of the past. And then if you look at it in a positive way, if you're looking at social media and social media strategies in particular, it's a fantastic tool. You know, expand your marketing, building brand awareness, connecting with your audience. All those are things that any salesperson, anyone looking to build a business and grow brand awareness is looking to do that. It's connecting with audience. Social media provides you the way to do that. And it's a one-on-one operation as well. Even if you're automating a lot of the stuff behind it, it's a one-on-one operation. That's one of the major things about social media strategy. It can be very non-invasive. It's not like pounding on someone's door. It's putting it out there for when they want to connect with you. So it's putting marketing out there in the way that the time and the place that your prospective buyer wants. In that sense, a very inbound approach, which I think is the right way to do things in today's world. Finally, as I was saying earlier, online tools is a tremendous leveler. It really levels the playing field. There was an article I was reading recently about a very small, not quite mom and pop, but almost, 10 employees, cosmetics company, I'm sure in the US, and through social media, they managed to be at a par with Dior in terms of number of hits. And Dior has something like $100 million advertising campaigns online versus this little company. So it really is a leveler and to be taken full advantage of. With that, I'm going to turn back to Samantha to head us into the details of a buyer persona and their journey.
Excellent. Thanks, Susanna. So one of the most important parts of your social media strategy, and the part that you really need to get right from the beginning, is defining your buyer persona. Because if you try to accelerate your sales process without knowing who you're selling to, you might accelerate into a dead end. As HubSpot themselves define it, a buyer persona is a semi-fictional representation of your ideal customer based on market research and real data about your existing customers. Defining a buyer persona is really important. It allows you to make sure that you're always reaching the right person at the right time with the right message, saving your company and yourself a ton of time and resources. A buyer persona helps you determine who your ideal customer is. Understanding who you want to reach will guide you in a variety of ways, from choosing the right social media platforms to use, to creating the best mix of content to share, to being able to advertise to the right audience. And when you think about who your buyer persona would be, you can start thinking about what language they speak, where do they live, what is their income, what do they buy, and so much more. And how do you figure this out? Where do you even start? Well, first you want to identify your ideal corporate profile, and this is a bit different from your buyer persona. Your ideal customer profile is a category, and then a buyer persona is going deeper to subcategories. So ideal corporate profile, or ICP, and buyer personas are different but linked. You can have an ICP that has a few personas and your marketing team creates content for, or your sales team feels comfortable talking to. So for example, a B2B company in advanced manufacturing, that can be your ideal corporate profile, but then inside, the CEO takes the ultimate decision, but based on his line specific engineer, and then head of sales and marketing, and then research analyst. So all of these are buyer personas within your ideal corporate profile, and each has their own problem. So if you're in B2B sales, and your ideal customer profile will define which companies are a good fit for your product offering, and your buyer persona will define the people within those companies who you need to work with. So each persona fits an ideal customer profile, and each buyer persona will have specific questions, concerns, and roles within these customers. But it's important to remember that when you're developing your buyer persona with your marketing and your sales team, you definitely want to do this together so that everybody's on the same page, so that marketing is actually reaching out to the people that your sales team wants to talk to. And it's important to keep in mind that buyer personas can change over time. How they communicate, what their interests are, what their problems are, that can definitely change and shift over time, as we've seen pretty drastically over the past couple of months. And you also need to keep in mind that international buyer personas might not be the same. And we'll take a look at these examples in a second. But first, an example of a really good buyer persona from a company called Zipcar. They have such a clear idea as to who their buyer persona is that they actually include it in their mission statement. So the buyer persona would be somebody who is urban, educated, tech savvy, and environmentally conscious. And in the example of their Instagram post, you can see that they're talking to that type of person. This picture shows two young urban people looking environmentally conscious because they're holding plants, and they even go a step further by using the appropriate hashtags, like hashtag back to school, hashtag plants, and hashtag dorm life. Your international, but like I said before, your international buyer persona can and probably will look different from your domestic buyer persona. And so we take a case study of L'Oreal. So your international buyer persona can differ from your domestic buyer persona, especially in times like these. So on this slide, you have a few questions that you should ask yourself. Are there multiple buyer personas in my export markets? Probably. How do they find me? What do they care about? How do they like to interact with me, or how do they like to buy from me? And L'Oreal is frequently cited for how spot on they are with their international online marketing. So if you look at this picture, this was kind of at the start of the pandemic when everything was shutting down, and stylists and hair salons, they were all closed. So L'Oreal had this message kind of showing their support for their stylists that use their products. However, in the next example in Australia, the message is totally different. There was no mention of COVID-19, of coronavirus, of shutting down, social distancing, none of that. But instead, there was a focus on the client. It was most likely due to the fires that Australia suffered towards the beginning of the year. So that was their focus. That's what mattered to them at that moment. And then in the last example, L'Oreal is demonstrating to Brazilian customers that they're doing their part to help the people of Brazil by producing hand sanitizer, which is something that they don't normally produce. So as you can see, each buyer persona is clearly different, and their messaging is respectful of that. So once you define your buyer persona, you can figure out your buyer's journey. The buyer's journey is the active research process someone goes through leading up to a purchase. It's a fundamental part of social media strategy because it's a framework used to understand your buyer's needs and provide them with the information they need to reach their goals. Every interaction your buyer persona has with your business should be tailored to where they are in their buyer's journey. So every potential buyer is focused on, first, identifying their problem, which is the awareness stage. Second, understanding what options could alleviate this problem, so the consideration stage. And then comparing their top choices when they're ready to make a decision, so the decision stage. And remember that your buyer persona differs across different markets. That's why you need to localize your websites and localize your social media to make sure you're engaging with the local buyer persona in the way that they want. And in this example, this is how a localized website can function so that it can speak to your specific buyer persona in that market and not to other buyer personas around the world. So here you have a website that is targeting prospects in Australia. So it's on a .au, it's hosted in Australia, and the SEO and social media marketing is all for the local market. So as you can see, the results for 1 month on this B2B site shows that the majority of traffic, so 77%, is from their main target market. So not only that, but 86% comes from Australia and New Zealand combined. And in fact, 99% comes from English-speaking countries. So this shows you that Google thinks that this website is relevant for the Australian market and barely relevant for other English-speaking countries like the US, United Kingdom, and India. And then the image on the right is just a great example as how you can even target a specific area, city, or even neighborhood. So that's why it's so key. And if you take anything away from this presentation, it's this: to please define who your ideal corporate profile and your ideal buyer persona. And the next example, you'll see why. Because different buyer personas interact with social media platforms and with your company in different ways, and that can result in reporting that looks that looks very different from one another. So here we use Facebook as the example. This is just to show how important buyer personas are and their journey in the target markets. So this example is from a campaign that we ran where we were promoting the same content, which is a blog in this case, with a very similar imagery and message, although of course localized for Mexico and for the United Kingdom. So if we look at the results of this specific post, for the UK, over 1,200 engagements, and we were super pleased with it because the UK tends to be difficult to get engagements from. And then we take a look at Mexico and we see that over 20,000 engagements, which is just absolutely incredible. And if we stopped our analysis at this point, we would assume that our campaign in Mexico worked a whole lot better than the one in the UK, right? Well, not necessarily. So if you take a look at the next slide, this here you have the same company, but looking at their Facebook postings over a year and comparing Mexico with the UK. So we said that there was a lot more engagement for Mexico. And you can see that in the blue and red bars. Just look at the MX versus the UK blue and red. Engagement here is measured as the number of times someone clicked on it, liked it, or shared the posting. And that is important for long-term brand awareness. But what about lead generation? If we look closer, we can see that the UK and Mexico are much more similar if we are looking at lead generation. That is reflected with the green and yellow bars on these two charts. These show the number of times people have clicked on where can I buy or how to use. So you can see that the Mexican buyer persona engages much more easily than the British buyer persona, but lead generation and actual sales is about the same. The buyer personas of the two markets just react really differently. So now I'm going to hand over to Susanna to look at some of the big international social media channels.
Thank you, Samantha. That was a great introduction and terrific examples of a buyer persona and the buyer's journey. So now we're going to look at some of the big international social media channels. They will be probably all very familiar to you, but I think there'll be some common threads as well that we wanted to highlight. So first of all, just sort of generally in terms of social media marketing, you know, on the right you have some of the logos that I'm sure most of you go, oh, I know those guys very well. But we just want to sort of reiterate that this is some of the fastest, most cost-effective way as well in order to get your brand and your message out there globally, because these are all big global giants. This example here, it dates from January, but as we said earlier, 4.14 billion people are now on social media. And the map just shows you the dominance of Facebook. That's the dark blue. And then in terms of social media as of January, and then some of the other big ones, China, of course, Qzone, and those are things like WeChat and QQ. And then perhaps also a little bit of VKontakte, which is the the Russian one across all of the Russia and the former Soviet Union territories, going right up into backing up into Europe. So those three big dominant players, obviously Facebook as the major one. What's really interesting is what's going on behind the scenes. So if we look at sort of the second ranked, so obviously Facebook was number one, but who's ranking number two? We get a slightly more diverse picture. Again, it's very divided between sort of the Russian ones. And then on sort of Australia, India, Europe, South America, North America, we get Instagram, with the exception of Canada, which is Reddit. And then there's quite a big sprinkling, in various places of blue for Twitter as well, which one doesn't know is associate for social media marketing for big companies, but is there as well. So there you go. So the sort of the first round and then the second map of social media networks across the world, which is good. If we now turn to some of the big players, and obviously, as I said earlier, the big giant in the room is Facebook. You might have heard of that old saying, if Facebook were to be a country, it would be the largest on earth. And that's because something like 2.5 billion people are on Facebook. So it's just phenomenal size of it. But what I want to emphasize here is that Facebook is in fact available in over 100 different languages. It really is a global giant, and it's everywhere in the world, as we saw earlier, except of course in places like China, which we'll talk about in a second, and then in certain other places. But really, it is a global platform. It is the largest single Facebook market at the moment is India, which is it's actually much more than 260 million on this slide. It's growing very strongly in India, larger than in the USA. Then Indonesia, Brazil, Mexico, these are very, very much dominated by Facebook. Facebook has had a bit of a hit recently in terms of its growth. I think because of people for a whole variety of reasons, but mainly I think it's had a hit on its advertising revenue, which you saw in the Q3 numbers that recently came out. But I think they're trying to address that as well. We'll see where that goes. But obviously, one of the main points about Facebook, if you're looking at social media strategy, which we'll talk about in a moment, is that this is a platform that can give you enormous leverage globally in many, many markets, and especially in places like Latin America, if you're looking for a strong strategy in those areas. Next on the list that I wanted to highlight really was YouTube. If for nothing else, then the fact that it is, the second most visited website in the world now. And again, to highlight that it is present in 91 countries in over 75 different languages. And I guess the other thing to keep in mind with YouTube is that it is increasingly used like a search engine. So people will go on YouTube to look for something and then find the YouTube of it, the video of it. And videos is something that we would really recommend for clients to look up and have in terms of their social media marketing, but in terms of their website, in terms of their for their reach, and increasingly the way that people are consuming information. So again, 80% of the views of YouTube are outside the USA. As I said, 91 countries, 76 languages. A lot of B2B companies are really focused on LinkedIn. And it has been a very strong growth in LinkedIn in 2020. So this year, perhaps because of pandemics and all the rest of that, it has been very strong growth we've seen in its core base. But like the other platforms that you're all familiar with, 70% of LinkedIn is outside the USA. The largest users, yes, is the USA, but then India, China, Brazil, the UK, France, coming up very close and growing fast. So again, a strong platform to be used not just for finding employees and putting out your own CV, but also for communicating with other peer groups. A terrific way of saying, if you're an engineer, connect with other engineers, discuss problems, and connect and look at your sales guides together. And obviously, I did a little plug here for our own LinkedIn page. If you want to come and join us on LinkedIn, we'd be delighted to have you there. And we even run a page on export U.S. exporters go global. I want to highlight Instagram as well. Instagram is a company that I think not all businesses always look at immediately, because it seems to be very B2C and very young, and in fact, it has the average age of the Instagram person is under 35. But it is interesting how much Instagram followers follow businesses. So 90% follow at least one business account on their Instagram accounts. And it has a very, very high engagement rate. And the other point about it, I think, which is interesting, is that it has these different methods of posting, feed, story, or IGTV, which allows you to repurpose content. And Joelle will talk about that in a second. Finally, just wanted a little mention here. We've done a lot of webinars on China. You can get more details on those webinars. But China has it's so specific, it's so much its own environment that it wants to be highlighted. YouTube's banned in China, so you've got to find an equivalent, Youku or whatever. The ultimate goal is to get sort of a really well-liked and known business account on WeChat. And how do you do that? It's really a proxy for the entire of the internet. So again, China giving it's very much its own environment. Although the strategies, they all, and I'll turn to Joelle now to talk about those strategies. The strategies all link and can be transferred from one market to the other. Before I pass on to Joelle, I want to do a quick poll. So just to make sure you're all still there. So does your company already use social media to grow your business? And if so, are you doing that domestically, internationally, a little bit of both? Are you thinking about it? You know what, so far we've had over half of you reply. Not one single person has replied, yes, internationally only. It's not surprising. But I'm very happy to see that many of you are already involved in international social media marketing. That's terrific. There is a big percentage of you also looking and thinking about it. So I'm very glad that you're all on the webinar today. So I'm going to close that poll and hand over, in fact, to Samantha again, and then to set the scene for Joelle. Samantha?
I won't keep you guys from Joelle for very much longer, I promise. So taking a look at global social media strategies, in practice, this is ideally what it would look like. So first, your domestic US website can have its own communication policy surrounding it. So using SEO and social media marketing to draw in its in your clients and prospects through your US website. And then for your international clients and prospects, you need a similar online environment, or sort of like digital real estate. So let's say you're targeting the French and the Brazilian markets. Then that also needs a dedicated localized website to act as a springboard for your communications. It can all feed back to your US website, and it certainly should be linked. So your France and your Brazilian localized websites will each have its dedicated monthly ongoing SEO and social media marketing strategies behind it. Also to keep in mind, brand consistency is essential. So your French and your Brazilian websites should look and feel the same as your US website, but just localized for those markets. Then and only then can your online communications be effective in those markets. And the same applies to your social media strategy. Consistency is absolutely key. So as a takeaway, make sure you have your localized websites first, and then follow with international online marketing to increase traffic and conversions. So in the next slide, we have an example with some localized blog posts that we did for Bullman products. So the buyer persona is clearly identified, and actually is drilled down to quite a fine level. Not just a teacher, but a primary school teacher. And as Bullman sells art supplies, they want to generate interest in their products to the teacher who uses the actual product. This is what we mean by sort of top-level traffic. So the blog was used in the UK market, but it was especially targeted for the German market because Easter is such a huge event with traditions of egg painting and a lot of crafts, especially for kids. What's also really important to note here is that there's a clearly defined objective for the post. So content that was created had an absolute clear framework, which Joelle will get into in a second. So here is an example of a company using localized websites and online marketing to generate leads and drive forward their business. So, but before you go into building blogs and social media posts and getting really excited about your international online marketing, you need to start. You need to make sure to do your keyword for your buyer persona. So this is just a quick example of why doing and periodically reviewing your keyword research is absolutely, well, key. This is vital for search advertising. You need to make sure that you're using the same language and the exact sort of terminology that your target audience is using in search if you want to rank high and be competitive. But this is also paramount for any content that you create. And with content, I also include social media posts. That short snippet of text that you include that your audience has a few seconds to make a decision, maybe even subconsciously, is absolutely key on whether they're going to engage with you or not. So as we mentioned before, using native-like language will help in building brand trust, as your content will feel local, relevant, genuine, and creating a really great local user experience. So by creating a native-like experience, you can increase engagement and boost brand lift, as the user won't think that your posts are just kind of spam or ads. So now I'll hand over to Joelle to talk about more global social media strategies.
That's excellent. Thank you very much, Samantha. For your expectations have been set really high, so I'll go straight into that. And that's fantastic. The keyword that we said is paramount, making sure that we get the right language. But there is one other crucial piece of the social media promotion puzzle, which is aligning your social strategy to your business objectives. So when designing your marketing strategy or your social media strategy in the more specifics, it's really important to always be aligned with the overall business strategy. This will give you the starting point to decide what you want to achieve and consequently how you're going to monitor this, or what metrics should you really focus on, what's important to you. So as with your business goals, we, make sure that your social media goals are SMART, so specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. This will give you a very good framework to be able to then measure success. So taking social media here as an example, in this slide, I've taken an example from a Facebook campaign, and you can already see how you can tailor your activities to the goal and overall objectives of your business. If you look at, what you want to achieve, what's your goal, and then giving you a metric. And all of this is just social media related, and that's what you need to make sure you have clear. And then once you start setting your objective, you can always, this will help you define what success really means and how you can measure it. So where is your return on investment? Remember, obviously, as I mentioned, to make your goals realistic. For international markets, this can be especially important as you build up brand recognition and that trust that is so needed in the buyer's journey to make sure that you get the right level of engagement with your social media account and then on your website and as a business in general. So before you can start designing your marketing and your social media strategy, you need to think about your goals. This will then inform your metrics, and this is very important to you, and those are the ones that you should really focus on. Once this is set up, don't forget to keep an eye on them, analyze the results, and if needed, make changes. So before we get a little bit deeper into the strategies, I thought it would be helpful to remind ourselves what organic really means. So it means unpaid. So organic is not limited to search engine optimization, which is how search engines like Google rank your website, but you can also have organic social media posting. So in fact, this really should be a key component of a good social media strategy, as you want to build up credibility and brand authority over time. Traditionally, inbound marketeers have avoided paid advertising and paid social media advertising, as it was viewed more as an outbound method for marketing. But with social media ads and tools like HubSpot ads, it's becoming far more common for the two to work together. Realistically, it can take 3 to 6 months to start gathering a community of organic followers to your page, especially if you're going international and starting in a new market. And most people really don't want to wait that long. So paid ads can really help you here to get visitors to your website, visitors to your social media pages, and speed up the process of optimizing your landing pages for higher conversion, which will really pay off exponentially in the long run. So if you are weighing up the pros and cons of organic versus paid, sit down with your team and examine your timelines and your budget. If you're looking for the quickest result, paid is better. But if you're looking for the most cost-effective results, and especially for a long-term results, the answer becomes less clear-cut. While organic posting is more cost-effective in the long run, with the right tweaking of your campaign and attention to your landing page optimization, paid ads can actually be very cost-effective. We would actually recommend a combination of organic and paid, one boosting the other. So this is an example from one of our clients, really just to show how organic and paid, and in this case, we have both search engine and social media, organic and paid campaign running, can work really in symbiosis to help your brand gain share of voice and visibility. If you look at this example, by working across channels, they doubled their impression share in 12 months, reaching nearly 3 million views per month. And look how, it's not just the paid and the Facebook paid marketing that's increasing, but this has really helped their organic traffic, which will then really help them in the long run continue to build the brand awareness for a lot cheaper. Perfect. Now we have our goals. We know what we're trying to achieve. We've defined our buyer persona. We've decided on our platform. It's time to start posting. Right, so as per every marketing channel, social media requires a structured approach to ensure that you're always reaching the right people with the right message at the right time. You don't want to have done all of the work on selecting your buyer persona and your goals and then not being able to achieve them. So your content should also then help lead visitors and prospects down that sales funnel. So your website should have a variety of content addressing different questions or concerns depending on whether the prospect is in their client journey, from an awareness, the purchases, to the advocacy stage. For example, a blog is a great tool for building awareness, educating and answering general questions about your services or your industry in general. But for a prospect who is evaluating your firm for a hire, a case study or a testimonial might be more appropriate to demonstrate successful work that you've done for your clients. So with a solid strategy, each piece of content on your website will have a specific purpose and target audience. People use the internet to conduct research, or use social media to conduct research, and to find out more information on a variety of topics. Be sure to use your content as an opportunity to educate prospects about trends, common questions in the industry, and for those, again, a little bit further down the funnel, your company, your processes, and your services. And social media is a great place to give your content more visibility and to use it to attract more users to your pages, helping them in the journey and communicate with them. So as Samantha was giving us an example of buyer persona earlier, so your buyer's journey can be also broken down into 3 stages: the awareness stage, the consideration stage, and the decision stage. So when designing your social media strategy, it's very important that you take into account what content you will want to create, what content you will want to promote, and for which part of the journey and what audience you're targeting with. And also remember, the content doesn't have to have, directly ties back to one of your products or services. Your audience will appreciate the helpful information, but more importantly, they'll quickly embrace a relationship with your brand. So when it comes time to make a purchase, you will be top of mind as a trusted, loyal partner. So just as different topics work for the 3 stages of the customer journey, so does the type of content that your audiences like to use. So we have highlighted here a few different examples of what topic or what content you should use across the different stages. And here we have, on the next slide, I've just provided some examples at ways you can then repurpose the same piece of content as another way to maximize on what you already have. So for example, you might have a blog that's performing very well organically. Well, why not turn that into an infographic, which is very nice to show on Instagram, versus a blog might create more engagement on LinkedIn. This is just creating extra resources that you can share and promote across your different social media channels, giving your audience who might not be maybe ready to engage for the blog, they prefer the visuals, and maybe they want to find out more, and then make sure to interlink them to give them the option to interact with the content as they prefer throughout your social media or your website. Perfect. So now you've identified what content you already have, and maybe even what new content you need to create to fill the gaps. So the big question is, how do you use this content? Having a content calendar, and this could look at the year ahead or a quarter, the month, or whatever timeline suits your business model best. This will also help you structure your thoughts and make sure that the delivery of your content strategy is coherent. So when organizing content calendars for an international audience, there are a couple of extra questions you should need to ask yourself. So what platforms are they using? Either on LinkedIn, either Facebook, Instagram. Who are we trying to reach with this specific post or this specific piece of content? What is our audience? Where are they? And what exactly do you want them to do next? What's the call to action? What do you want them to do when they land on your website? So now I can see yourself, some of you asking, do I need to do this for each of my social media accounts, for every platform? Do we need to create content for each of them? Well, good news is that you probably already have great content that you've created for your website. So there might be some light at the end of the tunnel. Repurposing content is a very effective way to make the most of each piece of content you've created. So here are a few types, a few examples. So we have here your new localized content on your international website is ready to be repurposed across your social media platform. You've created your blog, you've added to your content calendar, and now you're ready to share promoting it through social media. So to give you an idea of how we can bring all of what we've discussed together, so our objectives, our goal, our KPI, social media channels, and calendar, I just wanted to share a couple of case studies here from two of our clients. So this slide features how we've repurposed blogs for social media purposes. So these were blogs that we had localized for our clients for the UK and the Latin American market. We then promoted this content on social media to boost performance of the page and drive qualified traffic back to read the full blog. But we've actually, our goal in this sense, if we wanted to go back to that, was to drive top to mid funnel traffic to the blog page. But we've also seen a boost in keyword organic searches. So people reading the blog were then coming back and searching for either the product, the brand, or a phrase they read, or something that trickled their curiosity in the blog itself. In terms of performance metric at this point, based on the objective, we would be looking at how many page views on the landing page we received, but also how many likes, how many engagement, how many tap to call, how many emails, how many outbound clicks we recorded on the landing page. So what did these users do once they landed on our website? And then, as I mentioned, search queries volume was a very interesting find. It is something that we've then started monitoring, as that was a good indication of people coming back and how they were going through in their journey. Okay, so just to wrap up what we discussed so far, social media is a fantastic space to build relationships. And as we mentioned, to build trust with your prospects and your current customers in those specific markets. So if you're active on social media, please do make sure that you engage with your followers. Invite them to like your page. Most importantly, even more, answer their comments and mentions. Social media listening is a very powerful tool in engaging your followers and building that relationship with them. Okay, so before I hand you back over to Samantha and Susanna, I just wanted to do a little recap of online marketing best practices. So as we said, localized websites come first to act as your local springboard, but then do your research, get to know your audience, your buyer persona, and the buyer's journey. Choose which platforms are worth your resources. My advice, if you're just starting out, don't spread yourself too thinly. Pick 1-2 social media platforms and create a cohesive strategy. You can always expand later, but better to start from a couple and then see how that works for you. Set goals for your social media strategy, engage your audience, invite them to like your page, answer the comment, look, analyze, keep learning from what you find, keep learning from the feedback that you receive on those pages, and don't stop. See your strategy through. Results might take a little while to come over. You might need to get a few changes here and there, but don't stop, see it through, and you'll see your return on investment come in.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Joelle. So now I want to talk to you guys about the online global programs that we have available for US exporters. And there's some funding available depending on which state you're in. So if you take a look at this map, the highlighted states are states where we have an official online global program in. So if you're interested in website localization, international online marketing, e-commerce, and you're in one of these states, you are in luck. But even if you're not in one of those states, we would be happy to talk to you guys about our programs and your interest, and if it can help you grow globally. But before I go into each individual program, this is just to say, depending on what your goals are for your international markets. So maybe you are a B2B company and you're looking for distributors in specific markets, or maybe you're B2C and you're looking at lead generation, or just growing your trust, your credibility, or you're just trying to reach new markets. We can tip and tailor your websites and your international online marketing strategy accordingly. So just to take a quick dive into the individual programs. First, we have website localization, which covers options A and B. So our first option is option A, which is a 2-market expansion with a limited scope, so 12 web pages and 2,000 words. So by the end of option A, you'll have 2 fully localized websites based off of your US website in your top 2 target markets. And we will go through our whole localization process that we've talked about in other webinars. So from translation to SEO keyword research, domain names, hosting, you name it, we do it for that local market. And option A is kind of like our starter program with, and the budget is $12,000 for the 2 websites. And there are step grants available depending on which state you're in. It can vary from $6,000 to $12,000 depending on where you are. Option B is anything above and beyond the scope of work of option A. So say, for example, you want to go into one market, but you want a very large scope of work, so 30 pages and 10,000 words, then that would be considered option B. Or maybe you want us to redesign your international websites, or you want to integrate it with a CMS system. Those are all things that we can cover under option B. And the same thing goes where there are step grants available to qualified companies in specific states.
Samantha, hi, it's Susanna. I want to break in here and launch a quick poll, just in case anyone wants to learn more about the online global programs, about the step grants that are available and the funding that's available to support them, and you know, either option A for localized, but you know, two localized websites, or an option B where you cater, you customize it and say, no, I want this, that, and the other, whether for you know, a complete redo or whatever. So let us know, and we can send you information and show you which way to go on that. Just give you some feedback. Really delighted to see the uptake on that. Thank you so much. We will be getting in touch with you in due course if you clicked on the contact me button. I'm going to close that poll now and hand back to Samantha.
Excellent. Thank you, Susanna. So next is international online marketing, and that covers options C and D. And that is what we always suggest companies to do once they have their localized websites for their top markets. And this is where we implement everything that we talked about in this webinar. So identifying buyer personas, ideal corporate profiles, doing the social media marketing, the search engine marketing, and the reporting and analytics for your top target markets. So option C and D. Option C is kind of like our template program for online marketing, where we will market to your top 2 target markets, doing both paid and organic search engine marketing, social media marketing, and reporting and analytics. Then option D is just a customized program. So say you as a company, you have somebody to do your SEO work, but you really need somebody to focus on email marketing and social media marketing, then we would come up with a custom program covered under option D. So if you've tried to do international online marketing, if your distributors are doing it now and you want to take control over it, please answer the poll, get in touch with us, and there are STEP grants available, both federal level grants available for this program or these programs as well. So keep that in mind when answering the next poll.
Thank you, Samantha. You guessed it. I'm launching another poll. So if you want to learn more about the STEP grants available that apply to online marketing, and if you want to learn more about the programs that we run called Online Global Option C, Option C, D, basically about online marketing, please do let us know, and we can circle back to you later with more information about and how to get information about the grants, about our services, and so on. Again, very, very thrilled, excited to see the responses. Thank you so much. We will be circling back to you in due course. And with that, I think most of you voted that now. So I'm going to close the poll and hand back to Samantha. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Susanna. Then the last program that I want to talk to you guys about, and especially in the era that we're living in today, I can't go without talking about e-commerce. So our last option is option E, where we will develop a localized e-commerce platform for your top target markets. We will do everything for you. So we will create the cart, the website, the payment gateways, all localized for your top markets. So again, there are STEP grants available for our e-commerce program, both state and federal grants. So if this is something that you're interested in, just interested in learning more about the details, please indicate in the next poll.
And that's my cue. Launch another poll, and this is just specifically about the e-commerce programs. If that's of interest to you, let us know. Again, we can get you more information about the STEP grants and about what the full program entails. It is obviously a global program. It's e-commerce in all markets. We are also, platform agnostic. We don't mind if it's Magento or WooCommerce or whatever. So if you have an interest in that, we'd be happy to provide more information. And again, I'm going to say a terrific response on that one. That's actually really interesting. That was a very, very strong response on e-commerce, actually. So thank you. That's interesting to know as well. We will be holding more webinars then on e-commerce as well. Thank you. I'm going to turn back, and we have a lot of questions coming in, and so I'm not going to. I'm going to steal the show from Samantha, steal the microphone from Samantha, and just sort of focus in on a couple of takeaways and the Q&As that we have time for. Just very, very briefly in terms of takeaways, I think for us, the world is more online than it ever was. The numbers that I showed you at the beginning, with sort of 320 million people joining the internet for the first time ever in the last 6 months, shows you just how online we all are. 4.14 billion people spending 7 hours a day online every day. This is good news for companies. This is how you can reach people. So localized websites and online marketing is the way to get found and be understood and do business globally. Then next takeaway is really about online marketing and best practices there, which Joelle went through. Here are your 7 key boxes to tick. Your buyer persona, their journey, your goals, which platforms, your metrics and analyzing the metrics. Don't stop, is the important one. And the final takeaway really is about the online global programs. There is a helping hand out there. We have designed these programs to help companies get and really turbocharge their online presence, and have negotiated this with a lot of different US states, and there is STEP funding available in many, many states. So reach out if you want to learn more. So with that, I'm going to open up the floor to questions, and there's a ton of them. We have like hardly any time left. I'm just going to go through a couple. I'm grouping about 3 or 4 of them together. Samantha, how do I start with the STEP grants? Do I call my state economic development agency? Do I contact you? Where can I get more information about the STEP grants?
Yeah, either one. You can either contact your economic development agency directly, and they're the ones who give out the STEP funds, so that's a great place. That would be the first place. But if you don't know who your economic development agency is, you can always get in touch with us, and we would be happy to point you in the right direction.
Are STEP grants available for all the U.S. states?
No, unfortunately, there's some states that don't have STEP grants, but they might have other funding opportunities available. So it definitely varies.
Okay. Joelle, how long does it take typically to get traction in a new market using social media marketing?
Oh, that is a good question, and I think then it really depends on your strategy, whether you're going to invest a little bit of money to get your brand and your message out there at the beginning. That would speed up the process. As I think I mentioned, one of the statistics was about 3 to 6 months to start building your audience from. So let's say you enter a new market, you don't have any followers, brand new page. It might take 3 to 6 months to start seeing, your organic response and growing your followers. But if you look at Facebook or LinkedIn advertising, that can be a lot quicker.
And Joelle, do I need a separate Facebook page for each international market?
Another very good question, and the answer is, again, it really depends on your starting point. With this, I mean, ideally, yes, you would create a new community, a new page, especially if it's language specific or if it's a specific region you're looking to target. But likewise, if you already have an established domestic page that has some followers from that new market, then you might want to really bank on that. And platforms like Facebook, for example, allow you to be very geo-targeted, even at organic level. So you could post in Spanish to your Mexican audience without having to disturb your US or domestic audience, because you can really geo-target and make sure that it only appears to the people that it's relevant to. So plenty of options out there. Again, it really depends on your starting point.
We've run out of time. We've actually slightly overshot our time. I apologize for that. I wanted to thank my colleagues, Senior Marketing Manager for IBT Online, Joelle Lazzaro, for huge amounts of insights. Samantha Soffici, Senior Business Development Manager at IBT Online, for her knowledge of buyer persona, of strategies, of online tools. And I want to thank all of the audience for being with us. And actually, you've all stayed. Thank you so much. We will be looking into your questions that we haven't answered and email you responses. Thank you so much for those questions. Please answer the survey when I close down. It's really, really short. And for those who asked, we will be getting in touch with you about STEP grants and the online global programs. Thank you all so much for joining us today. It was a real pleasure. Sorry, we're 3 minutes over. Stay safe, stay well, stay good, keep on with the business, keep on exporting too. Take care and see you on the next webinar. Thank you all very much indeed. Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you very much.